Welcome to the 8th edition of Legal Affairs. I'm Lawrence Ma. Today we will talk about the Personal Information Protection Law, the first piece of legislation in the mainland dedicated to the protection of personal information. This Personal Information Protection Law was passed by the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress and became effective from 1st of November last year. Does this law affect Hong Kong, and if so, how? Now in the studio today we have Mr. Stephen Wong, former Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data and Senior Consultant of the Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation. Stephen, Mr. Wong, please tell us why did the Chinese government introduce this Personal Information Protection Law, and what is the reason behind?
Thank you, Lawrence, for having me today. As we all know, we are now in the age of a digital economy. And there is no doubt that China plays a leading role in the development of the digital economy, a global economy as well. Privacy rights or personal information regulation is probably the topic most talked about recently. But I must say that it is one of the topics that is least understood. And that's why I would say that we all need to have our mindsets changed. And the recently enacted PIPL in the mainland China is once regarded or said by some academia in that it could be the most stringent set of legal framework in relation to personal information protection in the world. So probably this is a set of regulations that has the most far-reaching result or effect on both the individuals and the enterprises and the authorities. For a very long time in the mainland of China, personal information protection laws were not comprehensive but fragmented. So each department or bureau would have their own legislative framework regarding personal information protection. This piece of legislation, PIPL, is supposed to be the standalone, one-piece, comprehensive legislation about the protection of personal information in the entire country.
Why would they think of enacting this law last year?
Very good question. I think is, as I said, because of the development of the ICT or the digital economy, in which China does play a significant role. Two, I would suppose because of the expectation of the consumers in the mainland of China, probably to a certain extent influenced by the people of Hong Kong, by the framework that we have.
Because a lot of people would have their personal information uploaded online, for example, using WeChat and all these softwares, and their personal information become uploaded into clouds and all this, and into the hands of corporations. And therefore it is needed to regulate those companies in using and personal data.
Definitely. The ubiquitous collection of personal data, massive data they call it, 海量, okay, did cause some concerns, not only in the minds of the individuals in the mainland of China, but also in the minds of the authorities in the mainland of China, particularly in relation to the issue of national security. This piece of legislation, PIPL, has a strong flavor of national security.
Right, so if anyone who's, say for example, their facial configuration and all this, their biological data would be relevant in detecting any national security law breaches.
Not only that, but also in terms of the data relating to finance. Financial accounts, if you keep a financial account in the mainland of China, that will be, from now on, regarded as a piece of sensitive personal data, and special measures, special requirements, including separate consent for the transfer of the personal, of the financial account data out of the mainland to other countries or other territories, including Hong Kong. So there will be special measures, very stringent measures regulating the transfer of data out of the mainland of China.
A question of interest. We all know that this COVID pandemic, right? There has been saying that the Western government has been collecting biological data, our DNA data of Chinese, so that they would be able to produce some chemical biological weapon that specifically target the Chinese race.
That is one concern, definitely.
Would the PIPL, the Personal Information Protection Law, regulate that sort of transfer?
Indeed, no, biometric data or biological data of an individual, of natural persons, if you like, is classified as a sensitive data, sensitive personal data that would dictate specific requirements for the handling and also the transfer, especially the transfer of this sort of data out of the mainland to other territories, including Hong Kong and Macau, for this purpose.
If we come back to our law here, the PIPL, just tell us, how would that affect Hong Kong people first? Because we are all in Hong Kong, we are concerned about it.
The fact that if you have data collected from a person, a natural person in the mainland of China, okay, that will be caught by the law itself, because it's all concerned. It all concerned about individuals in the mainland of China. If you provide a service, or if you sell products to a person within the mainland of China, despite the fact that you are not in the mainland, the operator, the business enterprise is not within the mainland of China, but you're offering products or services to a person in the mainland of China, you will be caught. The same principle applies in the EU. Okay, you don't need to be operating in the EU before you are caught by the EU GDPR. As long as you provide a service, a product, or monitor the activities of a person within EU.
So for Hong Kong companies and even for foreigners, because the law, as you said, has an extraterritorial application. So for Hong Kong companies and for foreigners operating inside mainland China to collect personal data from mainland citizens, the law would be applicable to them.
Absolutely. Not necessarily mainland Chinese in terms of nationality or citizenship. A natural person within the mainland. And then you will also be caught by the services or products that you provide to the mainland, a person in the mainland of China. So that is the extraterritorial scope of this piece of legislation.
Right, so if a foreigner travels to the mainland China, and it happens when he was or she was there in the mainland China buying an app, for example, and the app requires you to input personal information, and the app's operator is in Hong Kong, so that incident will be caught by this law and protected by this law. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not the same in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, if the operation base is not in Hong Kong, or the companies or enterprises in Hong Kong does not have the power to control the operation, despite the fact that a person in other jurisdictions may be affected, then Hong Kong law has no application as well at all. So this is quite different from the extraterritorial scope of the data protection principles protection in Hong Kong.
What is the penalty? Because as I understand, Hong Kong law is pretty lenient towards personal data infringements. What about this mainland law?
For penalty-wise, it's one of the major differences, not only between Hong Kong and the mainland law, but also between the EU GDPR and the mainland law. A heavier penalty would be imposed on the offender or the breachers of all these regulations, up to 5% of the annual turnover, not profit. In the EU, is up to 4% of the annual turnover. So in mainland China, a penalty up to 5% of the annual turnover, or 50 million renminbi. Now this is in terms of quantum,
Right.
all right? In terms of liability, which is quite different from the EU GDPR as well, the directors or senior officers, management officers of the enterprises will be personally liable. They may be prosecuted, for the breach of the regulation.
And probably have to go to jail if she's serious enough.
Of course, yes, that is quite clear. All right. So penalties or sanctions include, of course, apologies. You have to pay the fine, and you have to revise, all the privacy policies, strategies, and marketing objectives, for the purposes. So it's not the monetary penalty that hurts, I would say. It's the confidence, the reputation, and the trust of the enterprises in the minds of the consumers that really hurts.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Now that is the program for today. Thank you for watching Legal Affairs. See you next time.